Hello, I am Dennis Wingler, Executive Chef at Morrison Healthcare at UVA Medical Center. We're here to talk about knife safety and sanitation. Thank you for joining us today. What we're going to do originally is going to start off with explaining the knives, what they are, and what they're used for. And then we're going to go through some different cuts and how to prepare our foods for cooking them later. So we're going to start off with everybody's favorite, a chef's knife. This is a 10-inch chef's knife, very, very sharp. It's more of a utility knife, used for just about everything. We also have a serrated knife, usually used for cutting bread. The little wavies on the blade help slice through bread a lot easier. Also, we have a nice little paring knife. We'll use that for smaller cuts, anything we need, like strawberries, which we're not going to do today, but I'll use this a little bit, show you how to use that. Also, today I brought a peeler, because some of the things that we are going to be using today, we're going to peel, just to give a little bit of different color variance, like a cucumber. We're going to peel a little bit of it. What that does is that creates little bite points, so you don't get that little piece of green skin and cut in between your teeth. Also today we have a steel, which we use our first steel. It's not a sharpener, it's actually to realign the blade. As you use your knife, you'll see that if you look under a microscope, your blade is like this, and as you start to use it, it'll feather. So what the steel does is it realigns your feather so your knife stays sharp. It's not a sharpener, but it's a realignment tool. So we're going to start off with that. So I'm going to move these out of the way so we're not safety first. And then we're going to have an opportunity to cut some of our vegetables. We're going to do a diced. We're going to do some onions diced. We're also going to show how to Julienne onions. So using the same half of an onion different ways, so you can use it for different variations. Some for salad, some for sauteing, whichever you'd like to do. We're also going to use zucchini. We're going to Julienne that, and we're also going to dice that a little bit. We have some celery we're going to do. I have the cucumber, like I mentioned, and some bell peppers as well. Also, we're going to take some of our fresh basil, and we're going to chiffonade, which means the literal term for that is ribbons, fine ribbons. So we're going to start with that today. So with knife safety, obviously we're going to need to glove up because that's what we do for safety. Here today we're going to use our handy-dandy cut glove, cut-resistant glove. What I do is I put a glove on first to help keep your skin oils out of your glove. We're going to put our cut glove on. Make sure it's a fitting glove for you. As I'm doing here, make sure the fingers are all the way in, because what ends up happening is sometimes the tip gets in the way of your knife and you end up cutting into your glove. It's not going to cut you, but it just makes it tough to cut through the glove. Then I'm going to take another glove to keep this from getting all the food on it and put over top of the cut glove. So now we have safety and sanitation, because I can reuse my glove without having to wash it all the time. Once again, making sure that we get the glove on all the fingers, because what you want to do is cut the end of your rubber glove off and have that in your food. It's not very appetizing. So we're going to start off with that. One of the fun things that I like to do and I like to teach, obviously, is an onion. Onions are a great item to use because they do half of the work for you. So we'll start off with the red onions. Somebody use this for salads or something like that. So I'm going to cut off one end, the flower end, leaving the root end intact for now. Lay it flat. Anytime you can lay your vegetables flat, it's going to be safer if you try it this way, because it's going to roll. You have a tendency of rolling your knife and potentially cutting yourself. Don't take your cut glove for granted. So now I cut it in half, so I have my root end still attached. So we're going to start off with a dice. And with this dicing of the onion, I'm going to peel off the outer layers. And always keep your board clean. So anytime you get anything in the way that could potentially be hazardous for your hands, making sure that you are safe as always. So I take, with the root end still on it, I'm going to cut through 3/4 of the way through for our dice. This is another reason I like the onions. It does, like I said, it does have to work for you. And then we're going to use a rocking motion. You can use a chopping motion for some things, which I will for the Julienne because it makes it look kind of cool. But with the rocking motion, as you cut down, you see the onions start to break apart, and you actually have a diced onion that you can use for on top of a salad. Throw it into a potato salad or a pasta salad. And if you want to use anything smaller, maybe finer dice, as you're cutting across 3/4, then you just do a finer, and as you slice down through, it's going to create a smaller dice for you. I'm going to save these over here, keep all my stuff out of the way. And you'll notice that I use my knife to scoop my product up in, and I can use it as a spatula. being mindful of the blade because that's the sharpest part of the knife. So now we're going to go into Julienne. So now with the other half of this onion, I cut the root end off. So you have both clean on both sides. You peel off that outer layer that we don't use. And now we'll go side to side. Now you can still rock, or if you'd like to, you can do a chop. So what you're looking for in a Julienne is the long strips like this, which are also good in a salad or any other kind of item you want to use it for. Just different variations of cuts for an onion. One of the things that we do in a professional kitchen is we move around a lot and we take our tools with us quite a bit. So you always want to be mindful, particularly with our very, very, very sharp knives. When you saw me cut through that onion pretty quickly, my knives are very, very sharp. A brand new knife is going to be very, very sharp. I use my tools to keep my knives very sharp. A sharp knife is a safer knife than a dull knife. But as we're walking through, anytime we're walking through a kitchen, we want to make sure that we're pointing our blade down with the blade part of it pointing towards the back. And as you walk by someone, mention that you have a knife. You want to keep the blade, if somebody's on this side of you, keeping the blade on the other side and say, sharp knife behind, walking behind, and if it gets to the point where there's somebody over here, change your knife hand. Always being mindful of other people in the area. Another really interesting thing about knives, with them being very, very, very sharp, they're also a very utilitarian tool. They're very versatile. I use, for this particular thing, I can use it for spreading frosting on a cake. I use it for my chef knife for that. If people think I'm crazy sometimes, that's fine. You don't always need to have a paring knife, but I use this for just about everything. To hold the knife correctly, you'll notice that I wrap 3 fingers underneath the handle, and then I take these 2 fingers and I pinch right in front of the handle. This gives range of motion in my wrist. I can chop, I can move any direction I need to go, and it stays nice and aligned with my wrist. If you hold it by the handle here, there's too much opportunity for movements within your fingers. By holding the blade, it keeps you solid. With those fingers wrapped around, you have a nice grip on the blade. That allows more strength. That allows more chopping. Anything you want to do just makes it a stronger hold and grip. So moving on, like I said, we're going to introduce a couple little tools. So we have our peeler. So this is a cucumber. Cucumbers are fun. Everybody loves them. But as you eat them, like I said earlier, the green part in your tooth, you want to walk around the rest of your day with the green skin in your tooth. So what we do is we create bite points. And with that, instead of peeling it all, you can peel it all if you like. But this gives it an opportunity to have a little bit more color, a little bit more pizzazz and personality, because that's what we do in our world. I'm going to take my end off. Once again, now see how it has that little cool color around it? Really looks kind of nice, right? You can rock with your knife, keeping the flat part against the blade, because this is a taller vegetable than what we just used. You can rock, or if you want to be fancy, sharp knife, you can move a lot faster. Your cuts are going to be all pretty close to the same. That's the tricky part. So rocking of the knife is a little more accurate. Speed is always a nice thing, especially when you're probably, like, we'll do 25, 30 cucumbers. Speed is of the essence. So learning the fast part, be patient with it, it will come. So that's my chef's knife. Now we're going to move over to our paring knife, which we can do for just about anything. I'm going to use it for celery today. Celery is one of those vegetables that some people like, some people don't, but they're really easy to use. You can dice them, you can julienne them. For julienne, you cut the length that you would like to have, and then literally you run your knife down through there, and you create sticks. Okay? You can also, which I like to use for my chef knife most of the time for anytime I'm dicing anything, with your paring knife, keep the end like you would with your onion, so you have a hold point. Run the knife down all the way through so it breaks apart. Do that a few times, and then pinch them back together, and you can create dice, different sizes, different lengths, any kind you want. Then we also have a serrated knife, like I said earlier. It has little wavy lines on there. These are really good for bread, cutting breads. This is a really soft bread. I grabbed this one on purpose. I can cut with my chef knife. It's sharp enough I can cut it. But see how it squishes before it starts cutting through? The chef's knife, even though it's very, very sharp, on a soft bread it will squish. On a serrated knife, you can cut through and it doesn't squish as much. On a hard bread, like a French bread, a really crusty Italian bread, these knives will cut through that outer shell really nicely, and you can get really fine cuts on that if you like. For making crostinis, you can bake them in the oven, something you can dip with, things like that. All right, so next we're going to do peppers. Everybody loves peppers, right? The interesting thing about bell peppers, the red becomes sweet, right? So the green has that little bit of bitterness to it, but as the red comes along and the yellows and the oranges, they become a lot sweeter. There's a couple ways you can do peppers. You can cut it down the middle, set your knife down, peel out your seeds, get all that out of there. So what we do, I take my pepper and then I cut my side. Right? As I roll it and I'm cutting that side off, I don't set my pepper down, and I can go right to however I want to cut it. Right? So I can go Julienne, which we've done. And then the dice, we're going to Julienne again. Then we're going to line all of these up nice little line and run across it. And then you have a diced pepper. So it's super simple, and I have yet to put my knife down. See, that's the key. So now I'm going to make sure we get everything off of here because we're going to do a little bit of a chiffonade of basil. So people probably see this in recipes. So basil comes in a stalk. Looks like a plant, like any other leafy thing. But for chiffonade, this is kind of fun. We're going to take these leaves off, pull them off the stem. We don't use the stem. We'll take these leaves and we're going to lay them flat. And then I'm going to start at the stem end and roll towards the tip. I'm actually going to roll it as tightly as I possibly can. And as I'm rolling, I kind of pull it towards me. You don't want to roll all the way out here. So once I have it rolled, it looks similar to this. I'm going to hold it tightly. And then as I rock the knife back towards my finger, I'm going to do really thin slices. Which after you unroll it, ribbons. So once again, can be used as a garnish on top of a salad, on top of anything you want to use it as a garnish. Kind of gives it a little bit of life to it. The ribbons are always really kind of a neat option. So now after I've done all of these cuts, I'm going to be mindful of my knife. So I'm going to take my steel, right? There's ridges that run along here that kind of help align those feathers like I was talking about earlier. So now I'm going to hold it so it is at about a 35-degree angle. You can do it away from you if you like, same angle. If you're not as comfortable as going towards your hands, you do this away from you. When I first started in the business, however long years ago, this is how I did it. And then I learned doing it this way is a lot faster. Elbow up, just like in baseball, right? Elbow up, get your angle correctly. Just work one side and the other along your steel. That realigns the feathers, and we have a really sharp knife again. Next, we're going to go into a minced garlic. So there's two schools of thought on mincing garlic. Using your paring knife to create a small dice. Holding on to these little guys is a little bit tough. I pinch it on one side to the other and then cut between my fingers. With the cut glove, it makes it a little bit easier. And then you can slice across this way to split that piece of garlic. And then chop down through, and now you have dice. It's one way to do it. It's a lot more fun when you're doing a lot of it. I showed our interns this. Take your knife, put a piece of garlic here, place it on top of your garlic, just give it a little splat. Now it's flattened. Now all you have to do is chop through it. You're already 3/4 of the way through the dice before you know it. Hold your blade flat, just a little pop there, and dice away at you. If for some reason, as you're dicing your garlic, you can see I have a couple pieces that are big here. The power rock holding your knife edge down, you can work your knife back and forth and really get a nice chop in there. So now we've seen a couple different ways of chopping, slicing, dicing, and as well as splatting. That's not an official term. I think that's about it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Always making sure we're nice and clean. As we've cut through all these vegetables, I don't have a lot of stuff on my board. As we get things going, I have a trash, and I put all my ingredients together. So when I go to cook, I'm going to put it over here. I have all of my mise en place, so I'm ready to go into the pan. So nice, neat, and organized. Clean kitchen is a safe kitchen.